Another gate is coming, similar to Minichgate and Bakanovgate. This one will be called why? Because today it has become known that the National Anti-Corruption Bureau has opened a case against the former head of the Security Service of Ukraine, Ivan Bakanov. And not only against him, but also against Mr. Naumov. Andrii Naumov, friends, was Bakanov's right-hand man during his tenure at the SBU, and he was the head of the main Directorate of Internal Security of the Security Service of Ukraine until 2021, roughly until the upcoming summer season. So what exactly are these two individuals being formally accused of at this current moment? Once again, it is important to clarify that this is not merely a vague suspicion, but rather the official registration of a comprehensive legal case based on extensive audiovisual materials that the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine was able to observe and document just 2 days ago on the broadcast of a public figure and politician named Borislav Bereza. I will talk about this further. Part 4 of Article 368 of the Criminal Code, as well as Part 4 of Article 369. Essentially the same thing that Yulia Tymoshenko is being accused of right now. A similar undue benefit, and so on and so forth. Everything is connected with money, with bribes, and with demands. The essence of this case is as follows. The head of the Security Service of Ukraine, Ivan Bakanov, who in fact, according to the testimony of one person, I'll mention exactly who later, acted as a liaison between essentially Andrii Naumov, the head of the main Directorate of Internal Security, and Volodymyr Zelensky. The essence of this connection was to create certain conveniences or inconveniences for interested parties, whether legal entities or individuals, as a kind of business project in relation to the implementation or non-implementation of sanctions by the National Security and Defense Council. The sanctions of the National Security and Defense Council are a business project organized by Naumov with the assistance, cover, and patronage of Bakanov, who was quite close, and perhaps still remains close, I don't know, to the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. Bakanov left his post, as you remember, after a scandal related to the exposure of a Russian trace, essentially Russian agents, in Bakanov's inner circle, and accusations or critical suspicions which were never formally documented legally regarding the possible surrender of southern Ukraine, Chonhar, and so on. So this story is resurfacing now, it's being revived. There were no cases opened against Bakanov. All these 3-4 years, he lived quietly. I know that he is now a member of the Bar Association. He received his license in the Poltava region. So all of this is public information. You can find it. So what actually happened? On January 17th, on Borislav Bereza's popular YouTube channel, well, it really is a popular channel, no doubt about it. And as you can see, in just 2 days, this interview has already gotten over 283,000 views. A person named Serhii Vahanian appeared there. You can see him on the left side of the frame. And on the right is Borislav Bereza. Serhii Vahanian is a businessman from Odesa who, in his interview with Borislav Bereza, claims that he was persistently offered the position of head of the Odesa regional administration 3 times. But for that, Vahanian says he was required to pay $20 million. Pay whom? To pay essentially Andrii Naumov, Ivan Bakanov, and so on. He also talks about absolutely unbelievable things like a 50% profit tax for businesses. At that time, Serhii Vahanian was engaged in the export of grain products. In other words, he was involved in grain exports and made money trading these grains. At first, he says, I would give them a certain share, provide services, build houses, buy cars, expensive jewelry, and then they set a fixed rate for me. He says, and so it was 50%. That's how it went. And at this point, Vahanian started to think that maybe this was just too expensive. But why Vahanian kept quiet for almost 4 years is unclear, and only now has he told the whole story. And by the way, my personal impression of this interview, you should, of course, watch it for yourself. But to me, it seems like a story that's been pretty much scripted, someone interested, but it's all rather mechanical. Borislav Bereza conducts the interview in an interesting manner. Well, it doesn't feel like an interrogation, but the questions are quite direct and clear. The questions are pretty straightforward and the answers seem almost rehearsed. Is that true or not? But it looks like this interview just came about right now, and perhaps it was initiated for some reason and its appearance serves a purpose. Right at this very moment, as we're seeing all this, something is happening there with Tymoshenko. For example, when there are significant changes in personnel policy, including within the security service of Ukraine. And then this interview appears. In short, the sale of NSDC sanctions, extortion of millions of dollars, and trading in positions. These are the main accusations currently being made by Serhii Vahanian. Serhii Vahanian never became any kind of regional leader in Odesa region. Instead, he left Ukraine even before the full-scale invasion and is now abroad. He himself says that he is simply afraid to return to Ukraine because he could face retribution. And now he just can't take it anymore. So he's telling all of this. Bakanov's version. Well, of course, it appeared, though it appeared in quite an unexpected source, Strana's politics section. And on this Telegram channel, Bakanov commented, also Strana's politics section claims. You see, former head of the SBU, Ivan Bakanov, believes that the accusations of corruption made against him in the blog of ex-MP Bereza, voiced by businessman Serhii Vahanian, are an attempt by Poroshenko's supporters to break up the Mano majority and force Zelensky to surrender Ukrainian territories. Next, they provide a quote. The intention is clear. This is according to the version of the country's politicians, says Bakanov. To continue discrediting the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, this is exactly how it is phrased, the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, Zelensky, not as president, but specifically as Supreme Commander-in-Chief, at any cost. To continue destabilizing the majority. Mona, in order to force Zelensky to repeat the feat of his predecessor Poroshenko by surrendering territory to the enemy with the involvement of the draft dodger Bereza. Here, a specific type of country is implied. There was information in the media that Bereza is currently living abroad. This was stated by Ivan Bakanov. I am not making any more of these statements, but I see on the political side that they keep digging into all this. Poroshenko as the commander-in-chief. That's why there are these $20 million in schemes in the SBU and so on. That's the version. Vahanian also showed certain materials. Look, this is the kind of photo that's just flying all over the internet today, everywhere. Well, supposedly, you can't really see. The person is wearing glasses, right? But Vahanian claims that this is a photo of Bakanov himself, a secret photograph that was taken. Well, it's not clear, maybe in his office at the security service or somewhere else, it's unclear. Supposedly at the moment of handing over the money. I see that it's mostly hryvnias there. And if you look very, very, very closely there, you can hardly spot any 1,000 hryvnia banknotes. I don't know how important that is, but to me, it seems important. Yeah, I think someone brought in 500 notes, someone else brought some, and there's someone there, kind of like the creator, Bakanov, moving something around, and the 1,000 note is way over there, far to the right, just barely peeking out from under the 200 notes. Well, the hryvnias look a lot like 200 notes, right? They're kind of pinkish, purplish. He showed these materials, presented them, and stated that he had appealed to Volodymyr Zelensky as of June 2021. And he complained about Bakanov, and Zelensky promised him to look into it, and then Bakanov was dismissed. We've already discussed why. And after that scandal, he calmed down completely. That was it, no more. No one ever talked about it again. Until January 17th, 2026. By the way, that attack by Bakanov regarding Poroshenko, that it was some kind of crackdown before the elections. A representative of European Solidarity in Parliament, MP Goncharenko, commented on this story for us. Take a look at how he did it. He also reposted that photo with the person holding those hryvnias and even wrote Ivan Bakanov on the photo. The best friend of Volodymyr Zelensky, whom Zelensky appointed as head of the SBU after winning the elections. Ivan Bakanov in his office is receiving a bribe from businessman Serhii Vahanian. Vahanian took a photo of the money being handed over. And he says it so definitively, just like Goncharenko, as if he was there himself. He says directly, this is Bakanov's office. That's what's in the photo. So, Bakanov, that means the money is from Vahanian. Well, it's strange. Also, Bakanov's best friend is his deputy. At the SBU, Naumov cooperated with Russian intelligence and partially gave up the south of Ukraine. After being dismissed, people saw Bakanov in Courchevel. People who had voted for Zelensky, who had been at the front, who were liberating the south that was suddenly surrendered during Zelensky's childhood. It's a sad story. Well, here Goncharenko is now. You see, he kind of has little personal attitude toward this whole story. It's just a sad story. But here Goncharenko is being ironic, saying there's yet another reason to talk, though it's unclear how this reason will end. And it's very strange that there's such support for this topic. It's the only essentially. I also saw a half post on Goncharenko's Telegram channel from European Solidarity. No one else. Well, Klimpush Tsintsadze also commented that they asked NABU and SAP whether anyone would actually take up this case, because what Bereza did is quite interesting. And that's it. You see? It's quite a cautious step. So, regarding these serious accusations being leveled against Solidarity, is it true that they supposedly dug up some kind of damaging compromat on both Bakanov and Naumov? Now, the big question is, why is this compromat expected to explode right at this moment? And what exactly is it intended to achieve in the current political landscape? It's quite a confusing story. Now, the version about the elections, yes, that someone is trying to do something to someone ahead of the elections to spoil things. How exactly? How exactly could this spoil anything? Bakanov isn't running in the elections. Naumov isn't running in the elections. But look, Mariana Bezuhla as well. She's usually a defender. She's always for everything good and against everything bad. And she writes, yes, European Solidarity somehow came across this character and organized his interview. So Bezuhla claims that this is also a hit piece ordered by European Solidarity. And how did they find him and what did he get for such candid answers? Was there a separate question about that? Of course, the opposition has its own motivation, but still it was right to file a complaint with NABU. Another question arises, why is NABU not particularly interested in the economic aspect within the SBU? And why all this time has NABU not investigated such? Could you please explain the various schemes within the SBU? To stretch the second reading, but then it happened on February 24th, 2022, praises himself, Mariana Bezuhla. By the way, one of the key obstacles to the reform was a friend of Bakanov and Onushas, who still heads the law enforcement cabinet of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. So the mutual cover-up of the deep state department hasn't gone anywhere. And so Mariana Bezuhla starts to take pleasure in this whole story. She found the mastermind, like in an Agatha Christie novel, in a detective story. She has already disclosed the entire secret. These are the brilliant masterminds behind the operation. This is happening at this very moment. And finally, it is all coming together perfectly. And then she says, well, this is just some completely uninteresting and mundane story. Do you believe that this is the political order from European Solidarity? Do you believe that this is possible? The motivation for the security service of Ukraine to raise the issue of a great betrayal regarding the surrender of southern Ukraine. Chonhar, for example, given people's circumstances, that is, no one is looking into whether this could become a trigger. That's another version. Do you believe, for example, that Bakanov, who, as far as I know, is in Ukraine and nothing special has ever been charged against him, would suddenly reveal some story of unbelievable corruption in the security service of Ukraine right now? The right moment for this was actually pretty good in the summer, but not now. And where did Serhii Vahanian even come from? That's a very interesting story. And why now? And why at all? Borislav is in Bereza and not directly at the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. There are actually more questions than answers. And to connect them together, I've already seen some theories out there, like maybe it's somehow related to the trial against Timoshenko. But let's take a look at this as well. Let's throw in this story too. I don't think so. I really don't think these things are connected. And it seems to me that here, for the time being, the information regarding the leak is intended as a temporary update for now until further details are released. As they say, to cause a stir, to create a background that could later influence something. For now, there are simply no explanations at all.